A texting debacle. We once had WikiLeaks, and now we have HEXIS leaks. HEXIS leaking could have warned the enemy, and the White House is using semantics to obscure it. The White House is attempting to downplay Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's controversial signal chat leak by arguing that what he shared was not full war plans. First of all, why the hell are you guys texting? Shouldn't there be like a special computerized system that's specifically for certain cabinet level people of the government to be able to discuss and not necessarily a text? But I digress. While this may be technically correct, the information he disclosed still provided a highly detailed timeline of an impending military strike. The Atlantic's report revealed that Hegseth's messages contained specific times for U.S. fighter jet launches and drone movements, raising concerns about operational security. A traditional war plan would include more detailed target coordinates and weapon routings, but the leaked information was still sensitive enough to pose a serious risk. The real issue lies in Hegseth's decision to share this data on an unclassified. Again, the government doesn't have its own system to text among its people. I mean, I get it. They're millennials. Okay. I get it. You guys are used to texting, but still. It is an unclassified commercial messaging app, which, though encrypted like WhatsApp, lacks the robust security protections of Pentagon systems. This breach of protocol has intensified scrutiny over his actions and his judgment. More troubling, Hegseth's messages included exact timestamps for military operation hours before they were set to occur. If this information had been leaked or intercepted, it could have allowed enemy forces, specifically the Houthi fighters in Yemen, where the strikes were going against, to evade the attack. His own reference to OPSEC, operational security, in the messages suggests that he was aware of the risk, but still proceeded to share these sensitive details. Seriously, there has to be an app, right? You have one of the most brilliant minds basically working but not working for the government, Elon Musk. Have him develop something. The content of his messages was explicit. At 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time, FA-18 fighter jets were to launch. At 1:45 p.m., the first strike window would open, and MQ-9 Reaper drones would deploy. Such details are typically kept under strict security to ensure the success of a mission and prevent adversaries from adjusting their strategies in advance. Hegseth's actions have sparked concerns about the handling of classified military intelligence and the broader implications for national security, to the point that the Democrats are screaming for his resignation. So while the White House defense hinges on a narrow definition of what constitutes a war plan, the reality remains that the leaked timeline could have compromised a critical operation. This controversy is likely to fuel debates over security protocols within the administration and whether officials should face consequences for lapses in operational security. Given the gravity of the information exposed, Hegseth's future as defense secretary may now be in question. Though I don't know about that might be a little bit of an exaggeration because Trump loves him. But it is going to cause a stir. When you have the minority House, the minority leader of the House sending a letter demanding the resignation, when you have senators, when you have even former Pentagon people saying, what the H? This should not be happening. There's an issue. And Attorney General Pam Bondi suggests the signal chat episode is unlikely to be criminally investigated. Attorney General Pam Bondi has indicated that this signal chat episode involving Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is unlikely at a level to justify a criminal investigation. While FBI Director Kash Patel avoided making any commitments during congressional hearings, the Justice Department has historically handled cases involving the mishandling of national defense information. Despite the sensitive nature of the leaked attack timeline, Bondi echoed Trump's administration's arguments that the information was not classified, though experts have suggested otherwise. Bondi's reluctance to pursue an investigation is in stark contrast to past cases where government officials face scrutiny for mishandling classified materials. She deflected attention to past Democratic figures such as Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, both of whom were investigated but never charged. The Justice Department's history of discretion in opening such investigations makes it difficult to predict whether any legal consequences will follow in Hegseth's case. Historical precedence shows a mixed approach to such breaches. Clinton was investigated for using a private email server that contained classified emails, but was ultimately not charged. Former FBI Director James Comey criticized her handling sensitive information, but determined there was insufficient evidence to prove she intended to break the law. And Republicans widely condemned that decision as a double standard. So does that double standard and this double standard make it into a quadruple standard? David Petraeus, a former CIA director, faced criminal charges for providing classified material to his biographer and mistress. He pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor, receiving probation. I'm not saying that this is a level of a criminal investigation, but there needs to be some type of repercussions. I mean, what the hell? That was stupid. I mean, this is it. It's stupid. Can we call it that? It is so unbelievable. I, as an attorney, have a specific system that my clients can text me with and I can return text to that is secure, encrypted, and completely locked down. And our government doesn't have this. I'm calling BS on that. And then the text is now being heard around the world because now Europe is confronting a reality that our Vice President J.D. Vance's hostility is more than just a show. European leaders are beginning to realize that JD's hostilities toward them is not just political posturing, but deeply ingrained stance. His recent remarks oh yes, he was part of the private texts that were leaked. His recent remarks in those texts were where he expressed frustration over U.S. involvement in defending European interests in the Red Sea have only reinforced this perception. In a conversation about U.S. strikes against the Houthi rebels, Vance criticized American action, arguing that the burden should fall on Europe, which is far more reliant on Red Sea shipping than the U.S. Vance's disdain was echoed by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who shared his frustration over what he called European freeloading. These are our freaking allies. Whatever your opinion is, yes, maybe they do need to step up on fund. But the use of this mechanism is absolutely ridiculous. This rhetoric highlights the administration increasingly skeptical of traditional transatlantic alliances, a shift that has alarmed European officials who had hoped Vance's rhetoric was aimed primarily at domestic audiences. Instead, his opposition to European interest appears both ideological and strategic, suggesting long-term tensions in U.S.-Europe relations. The vice president has been a driving force in escalating tensions between Washington and its European allies, taking a harder line than even President Trump. His speech in Munich last month sharply criticized the EU, referring to its officials as commissars. His dismissive attitude toward Ukraine, one saying he doesn't care about the country, has raised serious concerns among NATO allies about the U.S.'s commitment to European security. Vance's behavior in high-profile diplomatic settings has further fueled European unease. In a recent Oval Office meeting, he publicly berated Ukrainian President Zelensky in front of Trump and the international press, a move that was widely seen as a deliberate humiliation. His hostility toward Ukraine aligns with broader administration efforts to scale back U.S. support for the country despite ongoing Russian aggression. And yes, they are having ceasefire talks right now, but they're still getting undermined by plays that Russia's making, and it's still not being done. And it looks like it may not be done because of how Russia is dealing with things. This marks a sharp departure from past U.S. policy, which has traditionally sought to maintain strong European alliances. While Trump himself has been critical of NATO and European commitments, Vance's approach appears more radical, suggesting a potential realignment in how the U.S. engages with Europe. His rhetoric indicates a broader push to pressure European nations to take greater responsibility for their own security and economic interests. For European leaders, the reality of Vance's views presents a significant challenge. Many had hoped he would moderate his stance once in office, but his actions suggest otherwise. And honestly, they've probably been more emboldened, if you were to ask, for my opinion. As the U.S. pivots toward a more isolationist stance under his influence, European nations may be forced to rethink their reliance on Washington and explore new strategies for securing their economic and military interests in an increasingly uncertain geopolitical landscape. Now, tie this in with the trade wars that we're getting into, with all of this tariffs and the fact that you now have Trump increasing tariffs on foreign-made cars that are being imported in, which the vast majority are from Europe, and the fact that Trump is threatening Europe not to align together in tariffs. We are the United States of America. We are supposed to have common sense, and we, the people, should really be sitting back and looking at our governing leadership and saying, where's the common sense? I'm not saying everything that Trump is doing is wrong. I actually am supportive of much of what he's doing. But there are some things that we need to dial back. The rhetoric, the impeachment, this anti-European stance that is being very much broadly there. And how about just a little bit of common sense going, I don't know, maybe not use a text that's not government secured? Anyway, thank you. Thank you for joining me on another episode of We the People. I am Alina Gonzalez Dockery, wishing you a very good night.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.